Hello, Arlen Epperson here again. We're halfway through our study on deliverance, inner healing, and healing of the spirit, so we hope that you've learned a lot so far. We're trying to be in compliance with Ephesians chapter 4, verse 12, which talks about equipping the saints. Some versions say perfecting the saints. We hope that the end goal here is to equip you to either find spiritual freedom for yourself, or better, find it for yourself and help others find it for themselves as well. I'm excited about this. I've been excited about it for over 30 years. And so I'm hoping that some of you who are watching this and going through the study will get excited too. We need more deliverance ministers. There just are not enough. I had a call the other day from a lady in South Africa. She says, "Where can I go to receive spiritual freedom? I saw your material." And I unfortunately had to tell her, I don't know. I don't know people in South Africa. Even in the United States, I have a friend named Sophia, and she's tried to find someone who can pray for her, and it's been a real struggle for her. So she is not free yet, but we trust the Lord will eventually put someone in her path that can help pray for her. For this week, we've got several chapters to go through, 15 through 21, and some of these are a little heavy. So, we may want to slow down here and make sure that you understand this. We've been talking now for the past 3 weeks. The first week was Foundations, about how demons get in. This is the last one of those, but this is a little different situation. In the others, basically we open doors because of sins that we participate in ourselves, that we choose to do, or we are disobedient to some of the teachings of Jesus, and as a result we have some disobedient curses or open doors. Today we're going to study first about the chapter on inner healing and the healing of the hurts, emotions, and memories. Now these are usually situations where we don't sin ourselves. It's not something we do, but it's something that somebody else does to us. And so the first chapter we're going to study is called Inner Healing. So basically there's a checklist in that chapter. There's some terms in that chapter, and first of all, you need to go through that list and those terms and circle the ones that apply to you, because we find many people, particularly women, who need healing from hurts, emotions, and memories. And much of that has to do with rejection. Rejection is a specific chapter we'll get to here in a few minutes, but one of your assignments for this week has been to go through that checklist yourself and circle the ones that apply to you, and objectively look at those and hold those up before the Lord and use the prayers at the end to pray for those so that the Lord can bring healing to you. Chapter 16 is on sexual abuse, and unfortunately this happens many more times than we can count. I suppose while the national statistics in the U.S. say that 1 out of 4 have been sexually abused, I think in Africa it's probably half, and it's probably half of the people who come to us, and it's not only women but men as well. Devastating kind of situation. I remember a lady who came to us, and she was in her early 50s. When she was a teenager, she happened to be from England, and when she was a teenager, she was robbed at gunpoint and sexually assaulted. And she carried that burden with her until she was over 50 and came for prayer. We went through the guidelines, and we prayed the prayers that are included in this chapter, and she was completely set free. And that's the joyous part of this ministry. We get to see people released from bondage, set spiritually free, and set on a new path with Jesus. It's interesting that if you pray for inner healing, for physical healing, if you see about a third of your people healed, you've done pretty well. But in this ministry, we expect 99% of them to be set free, and that's about the percentage that I'm used to seeing. Once in a while, we get one we can't handle, but not very often. So that causes us to be challenged and go back to the Lord again. Chapter 17 talks specifically about rejection, and I think this is the most common problem in Christians today, no matter whether they're in the U.S. or in Africa. Almost everyone suffers from some kind of rejection. Now, we've categorized at least 13 different categories. Some of those, we found that you can open a gate to rejection even before you're born. The manner of conception can create an open door, so you'll need to study closely about that. I remember the Lord bringing my attention to my own rejection a number of years ago. And I realized through supernatural inspiration that when I was conceived, my father wasn't really happy about it. It was at the end of the Depression in the U.S. He didn't have any money, and he was not sure he could afford to feed me and raise me. Now later that changed, but at least when I was conceived in rejection from my father, that opened a door and the spirit of rejection came into me, and I had it for a number of years. My mother loved me and wanted me, but in our home there wasn't much love shown. My dad was working long hours during the war. He didn't have to go because he was working on secret projects, but there was 4 of us kids, and it was a full-time job for Mama to take care of our physical needs. So there wasn't a whole lot of love, and so there's 13 ways at least that you can have a door of rejection either opened for you or opened wider for you. What we found is that there are, some of these add up, that some of the 13 end up being all in one place at one time, so to speak, and one person may end up with several of these, and so they kind of compound, and that makes things worse. In addition to that, there's some other spirits that seem to be associated with rejection. The fear of rejection, self-rejection, fear of abandonment, the spirit of fear, and perceived spirit of rejection. Now, I can tell you this, if you've been adopted or you've been in polygamy, as an African, one way or the other, you're going to automatically have a spirit of rejection. It just comes. I've not seen one case of those categories that doesn't have at least a spirit of abandonment, a spirit of rejection, and it creates some fruits that you'll find more about in the chapter that you need to ask the Lord to pray, ask the Lord in prayer to pray about. Chapter 18 talks about prenatal influences. You'll be amazed when you read that chapter how much our preborn infants can hear and know even when they're in a womb. They know if they're loved, they know if their mother smokes, they know if their mother is in an illicit sexual relationship, they know the voice of their father. There's just pages and pages and pages in there about what babies who are not born yet know. And some of these things cause rejection, obviously. So you're going to be amazed when you read that chapter. You're also going to be very careful if you end up being a pregnant mother or one that is pregnant later on, that these things are not opportunities for your unborn child to experience rejection. Chapter 19 is on trauma. And this is kind of a latecomer to the deliverance scene. The Lord kind of gives us concepts. In the 80s we learned about inner healing, in the 90s we learned other things, and in around 2000 we began to see writings about the effects of trauma and the ways that opens doors in our spirit for the darkness to come in. Let me give you an example, but first let me tell you how they come in. They come in from car accidents. They come in when you think you're going to die. They come in when your life is threatened. you have no control over these, but nevertheless, you are at an emotional state where your spirit is open and the darkness takes advantage of that. I remember praying in Africa for a woman who lived in Kenya. And one night she came home, the lights were out. In Kenya at the time, they had a lot of election violence. And as she opened the door, she saw a flash of light of a machete coming down toward her, and she jumped back. And apparently someone from an opposing tribe was waiting in the house for her and was waiting to kill her. And she escaped. She ran out the door into the bush, and she escaped. But that caused an open place in her spirit that was never healed. She was almost afraid to go outside anymore. She had much fear. She had panic attacks. We prayed for her, and about that quick it left, and the Lord blessed her and set her free. So the Lord has recently downloaded to a friend of mine named Mike Hutchinson about post-traumatic stress syndrome. Many soldiers have this. And in a short time of an hour or two, when he prays for you, that'll be set free. So the Lord is moving forward with many of these solutions, these equipping skills that will set His people free. Chapter 20 has to do with satanic ritual abuse and what we call multiple personality disorders, or more recently, dissociative identity disorder. Now, SRAs basically have been people who have been taken as children to satanic rituals by friends, relatives, or many times parents. And they're put through satanic exposure and experiences and orgies, and it affects their personality to the point where sometimes they develop what we call alters or separate personalities. Now, these are not demons, but if you are praying for someone and you suspect they have different personalities, you better get help, because this is graduate level stuff. The reason we include it here is that we hope that you'll be able to identify it and refer them and make you aware of the symptoms so that you can help those who may not even know that they're suffering from multiple personality disorders, and help them get to the right people of Christian counselors with experience who can help set them free. The last chapter in this week talks about our image of God and self. Many people who have problems with rejection and need inner healing for one reason or another seem like they also have a very poor image of God. Many of them see Him as they see their earthly father as authoritarian or abusive, or always watching for things that they do wrong. And as a result, their image of God is distorted. It's difficult for God to bless them when they don't like who He is. They react to who they think He is, and they believed a lie all their life. As a result, they have a poor image of themselves as well. So on the diagram I'm going to show you in probably the next week's introduction, that's one of the gates that I usually inquire about toward the end of the session to see if in fact they are improving in their image of God and of themselves. They need to know that God loves them, and as a result they need to begin to try to love themselves. So we hope you have fun with this week's topics. There are several chapters here, but you're going to learn a lot. So God bless you until we meet again next week.